This is Take 5 with Bentley, Nevada. In the studio once again today is Steve Gaskell. Steve is the principal for product security at Bentley, Nevada. And, Steve, thinking about, say, 20 years ago, I don't even know if the word cybersecurity was in the dictionary.
No, it certainly wasn't a consideration at all when developing products.
And now it's, one of the things that came out of discussions with Darren Evans, for example, was I think he said 200 plus customer interviews and engagements, and there really wasn't even a close second in terms of the number one thing customers were asking for was cybersecurity in a new platform.
It has to be there from the get-go today. There's no option. And we want to make a product that doesn't need all these compensating controls around it. Mm-hmm. We don't have to sell additional firewalls. We don't have to do extensive defense in depth, for example, on our recommendations. We're trying to make the devices defend themselves just as they are. So, But that's certainly a challenge with the older equipment, like you mentioned, 20 years ago. There's a term called insecure by design. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, because security wasn't a consideration during the design, that's how we've ended up in the situation. And it's common to all manufacturers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you think back to, I think, the mid-90s when the 3500 was designed, all the effort was on how can we connect? How can we get people in, not keep people out?
Yes, I kind of joke a little bit. Back in my day as a system integration engineer, going out to plants and just trying to get two systems to communicate together, we probably bypassed every security recommendation in the book today that we know about.
Yeah, I can imagine. Success was they're talking.
Exactly.
And today it's like, that's exactly what I don't want.
Right. Yes. Yep. So I'm paying for my mistakes, I think, in my early years.
Well, you're obviously a good person to be in that role, Steve, because you're so broadly connected to all the different parts of the business. And it's good to see that Bentley has really invested in this. And I'm curious in your thoughts, is cybersecurity as much a differentiator in kind of the competitive space for vibration and condition monitoring, or is it more a kind of like the price of entry? You got to have it or people won't even consider you.
It's really the price of entry. And you have to think about where our equipment is installed on a plant. It's probably sitting next to the safety shutdown systems, the DCSs, the PLCs. It may be on the same network in some instances. And so we want to make sure not only can we not be attacked by malicious actors, but our systems cannot be weaponized to go and attack other platforms within the plant. So it's really a holistic view on securing the whole plant, and not just necessarily your device, but helping make sure you're not the attack vector.
Well, the truth is, I think if a platform like Orbit 60 was only used for protection, the need for people to externally access it and so forth would be a lot less than it is today, where the platform has to do both condition monitoring and protection. Protection's usually set it and forget it.
Right, yes.
Condition monitoring is a constant series of changing parameters and so forth. And it sounds like the platform was designed understanding those use case scenarios so that a condition monitoring user can be altering things, but there's not that vulnerability, if you will, that they could get in and compromise the protective part of the system.
That's correct. We did put a lot of focus on segregating those two functions, the protection function and the condition monitoring function. And as we talked offline, the condition monitoring module can only consume data from the backplane of the rack. It can't inject anything back to the backplane, and therefore it can't compromise any other parts of the system.
For those that want to go real deep, it's not technically a data diode that we're talking about in that backplane architecture, but it's similar to the diode in that data is only really available in one direction and not the other.
Exactly. And it's very tailored to our own protocol, whereas maybe an OWL or a waterfall data diode lets multiple protocols through, and it's a security device. Sure. We've just took the security piece of that, the way that diode works, and embedded it into Orbit 60.
Well, fantastic. And I know that there have been some trademarks actually that were developed around that. And I think with this particular part of the system, it's called orbit access. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Like a diode, but for purposes of orbit 60, probably even better than a diode.
Yes, yep. A diode for a specific purpose.
Well, Steve, I wish I could say I'm done with all the questions I'd like to ask, but I do have a few more, so I'm going to impose on you to stay in the studio. We're out of time for this episode. You've been listening to Take 5 with Bentley, Nevada, a Baker Hughes business.